Hi guys, today I'm going to share with you how I transitioned my boy from his cot into his big boy bed, and I'm just going to get straight into it. So my boy is almost 3 and he is in his big bed, his big single-sized bed, and I'll just start from the beginning and kind of talk you through how we went from his cot into the bed. So we started off with a next to me crib, which, if you don't know what it is, it's one of those cribs that's right next to your bed, and it's kind of like a co-sleeping alternative, I guess. And so he did a lot of that. He did a lot of sleeping next to me in his next to me crib, and also co-sleeping with me on the bed for the first few months of his life. Kind of like my second son now, he's doing that as well. And so he was in that next to me crib, I want to say, for about the first 6-ish months of his life. And from there he went into his cot. And his cot was pretty big. I'll put a picture over here, but his cot is pretty big and it's got a few different ways that you can use it. So this is my first tip, is that get a cot which you can move it around, if you know what I mean. So basically this cot can be quite high up, or it can be lower down. It can have the side on, or it can have the side off. So it means that you can use it for transitioning very slowly into a big boy bed. And so for us, that cot has been really, really great. I can't recommend a specific one because we got this one second hand off a Facebook Marketplace. But it's just a very bog standard cot, but with the difference that you can move the level of the bed up and down, and you can take the side off. So I would recommend using one of those cots, because that's what's made it really, really easy for us to transition him from his cot into his bed. So around about 6 or 7 months of age, he went from his next to me crib into his cot in his own room straight away. And so he was on the highest level of the cot, so it was pretty high up, so it was easy to bend down and put him in. And he was in this one, and it's safe for them to be in this highest level until they're sitting up. And then when he started sitting up a few months later, he went on to the next level down. And I think there's another level below that. It's like a couple of different levels, just to make it easier on your back, I guess, when you're picking them up. And so as they become more active, you're going to lower the level of the cot down. And so once he was sitting up, we lowered the level of the cot down, and he stayed in his cot contained like that for quite a while. I guess his transition from cot to bed also kind of coincides with his sleep training journey. I'll link my videos I did about sleep training here and in the description below. You can check them out, because that's kind of a separate thing. But we did sleep train, very gently sleep train him as well. Around about 1 year of age is when I sleep trained him. So I stopped breastfeeding him to sleep at that stage, and I basically, that was the time he started sleeping through the night. So from about 1 year of age, he was still in his cot contained, and he was sleeping through the night by that point, around about 1 year of age. He was sleeping through the night, and he was also not breastfeeding to sleep. I still breastfed him, just not to sleep, and our breastfeeding journey stopped a year or so after that. So from about 1 year of age, he was in his cot, and he was in the lowest setting, and he was like that until he was 2 or 2 and a bit. Then when he turned 2, that was the hardest bit of our transition journey, because that's when I took the side off of the cot. So you still had the whole 3 sides of the cot, and it was still as he knew it, it just didn't have the side on it, which obviously meant he could get off the bed whenever he felt like it and run around. And so what we did about that was, I basically did a technique that I think I saw in like Super Nanny when I was a lot younger, but it's a technique essentially that where I put him to sleep as I would normally put him to sleep, and then I would leave and he would like run around. I'd come back, put him back to bed without saying anything, put him back to bed, but basically just kept putting him back to bed constantly, and then eventually he would stay in there and he would fall asleep. And so the running around stage lasted for a good few days, I would say. He did keep running around, and I just kept an eye on him in his video camera monitor, and I just kept a close eye on him and kept putting him back to bed. And then he did eventually fall asleep. And because he was sleeping through the night at that stage, once he was asleep, that was him asleep until morning. So that made it a lot easier in terms of the running around kind of situation. He did fall out of his bed a couple of times from his cot, but because the cot was on the lowest level, it wasn't very hard to fall, and he almost never woke up because he fell out of his cot. We could actually hear him when we went downstairs, and we heard a big bang. We were like, he's fallen out of his bed, and I would go in and I would just look at him and he'd be fast asleep, but just because I like to, I would put him back in his bed. And that happened a couple of times. Didn't happen very often, and he didn't ever wake up from it, so it's not a big issue if you're worried about them falling out of the bed. And so he was quite happy after a while, but that was definitely the hardest bit. The hardest bit was having the side off for the first time and him knowing that he could get out of bed and run around before he fell asleep. But then once he actually fell asleep, he was completely fine, and that was him till morning. So yeah, it was the trickiest bit, but it also wasn't too bad. It was pretty smooth overall. And actually the week that we took the side off of his cot was just happened to coincide with the week being that I stopped breastfeeding completely. And I don't know if that makes any difference or if that's better or worse or whatever, but that's just what happened. We stopped breastfeeding completely at that point, and we were just putting him to bed without that. So that couldn't have coincided with that. And then now he's in his big boy bed. He has just turned 3, he is in his big boy bed, and all we did for that was we took the cot away completely, of course, and we just put a new big boy bed in it, put him in his bed. Completely fine, absolutely no hassle, no problems. He was very excited because he got to help build it with his daddy, so I think that's probably something that helps if they're a bit sad about leaving their cot behind, because we had to give the cot to Noah, because Noah's now at the stage, our little one's now at the stage that he needs the cot rather than the next to me crib. And so Samuel's a bit like, oh, that's my cot. But he got to build his new bed with daddy, and it was a really exciting thing, and he loved it. And then once he got settled in his bed, he was completely fine, and he just fell straight asleep. He hasn't once fallen out of his big boy bed at all, so I don't know if it's because he knows it's farther and subconsciously he doesn't fall out, but he just doesn't fall out of his bed at all in his big boy bed. So there you go. My biggest tips would definitely be get the cot, which transitions into different states. You can take the side off, you can leave the side on, you can move it up and down. That cot was definitely the best idea because he was still in the same cot, but he was in a slightly different sleep state, I guess, and he had different levels of freedom, and it was really, really great. We really loved it, and it was a really pretty cheap second-hand option that we got, and I'm sure a lot of cots do that now. So if you're worried about it, I would definitely recommend doing that. And you can leave the side on for longer if you feel like it. I feel like 2 years was quite a long time actually to leave the side on, but it's completely fine and he's completely happy with it. And as long as they're happy and fitting in it, then I don't see a problem with leaving the side on for as long as you want, really. And then once they get to a certain stage where they're asking for a big boy bed, they can get a big boy bed. And if they're specifically asking for it as well, it's a good sign, because it means that they're probably ready to move on. So yeah, I'll link my sleep training journey down below, because that's a whole different kind of thing. But in terms of the actual changing of the beds, really, really smooth, really, really easy. And I would highly recommend doing it the way that we did it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a thumbs up, leave me a comment down below, and let me know any more videos you want me to do. And I'll see you really soon in my next one. Bye guys.